Hello everybody, welcome to another episode. This episode is called How to Stop Eating When You Literally Can't Stop. And I couldn't think of a better title to word this, because if you're a binge eater, you know that you genuinely feel like you can't stop eating. And actually I had a comment or a private message sent to me on my Instagram last week. I put up a post about binge eating, shock, and then a guy messaged me and said, just stop shoveling food in your face, sort of thing. Not aimed at me, but just in the general scheme of things, like how to stop binge eating. And then we had a nice conversation after that, because I politely replied, kind of, it's not actually as easy as that, because yes, physically, that's all you have to do to physically stop binge eating, is like to not actually do that and put the food in your mouth. But psychologically and emotionally, and there's a whole lot of more psychological and emotional and spiritual reasons around binge eating, as I'm sure you're aware of. And what I want to talk about today is hedonic eating. So back in my binge eating days, I'd be like sat there with a standard kilogram bag of peanut M&ms, because you can buy them in a normal shop over here in the Netherlands. When I first moved here, I was like, yay, this is where I'm meant to be. You can literally have a kilogram of M&ms from a normal shop. And I'd be sat there pissed at myself, like halfway through the bag, but completely knowing that I would actually eat the whole bag. And I just thought it was my lack of willpower. I just thought I had no self-control. And we all know that's not actually the case. So there is a way you can end this type of eating, which is called hedonic eating. Let me first explain to you what hedonic eating actually is. So most reasons why we eat past fullness is because of emotional reasons. But hedonic eating, however, is different, because this is biological. So it's not emotional, it's biological. So whilst an emotional eating is an attempt to numb emotions or cover up something bad, or just a way to distract ourselves from the emotion or the situation that we're feeling or going through right now, that's emotional eating. Hedonic eating is actually eating in an attempt to gain pleasure. So it's an attempt to gain something good, and it can actually feel like a real addiction, because if you feel like you literally can't stop eating when you eat a certain type of food, then it probably is, you probably are addicted to food, because there's a biochemistry addiction response that happens in your body when you eat certain foods. So if that is the case for you, like you just absolutely love this certain type of food, you can't stop thinking about it, you can't stop dreaming about it, and you can't stop when you start, then you're most likely a hedonic eater. So it's the same thing that, well, not the same thing, because hardcore drugs affect your brain in a lot different way to food, but it's the same cycle as a drug addict would suffer from. So hedonic eating is when a certain type of food literally becomes like a drug to you. I don't know why my phone is like making little black dots, so I hope you can't see it. Anyway, so how to know if you are a hedonic eater. So do you hyper obsess over a certain food type, or like I said before, if you're dreaming of it, like literally I used to dream of chocolate, or just I plan the binges to eat this certain food in an excessive amount and plan it for like weeks and days, even months, but I never got that far as actually never not being able to eat that food type for a month. But if you're like really over obsessing about a certain food, and then when you eat it you can't stop and you find yourself thinking about it all the time, you probably are a hedonic eater. Some people, by the way, like I was, are hedonic and emotional eaters, which I was. And when I first started my binge journey, Food to Freedom, that made no sense. When I first started my journey to stop binging and to find food freedom, I actually dealt with my emotional eating, binge eating first, because for me it was just a matter of becoming aware of why I was eating when I wasn't hungry, and then finding ways to cope around that, and then also working on my body confidence and my self-worth as well. That helped massively. But when it was hedonic, it took me a long time to get over that, because it's biochemical and it's I'm so sorry, I can't say that word. It's physical as well. It actually, a process happens in your brain. So here's how to stop obsessing over food and how to start overcoming hedonic eating if you do believe you're a hedonic eater. So the reason why we're fixated on this particular type of food is because of our psychology, which is probably the word I was trying to say, but I was trying to also say physical at the same time, and I got the word wrong. Anyway, please forgive me. You know I don't edit these videos. I am who I am. This is raw, and I really hope you can't see these. Like, I have a new phone stand to do my videos on, which is cool, but I don't know whether it's squeezing my phone too hard because it keeps flashing. So if it is really shit, I'll have to do it again. But hopefully you guys can't see that. Anyway, so sorry. So the thing is, we are psychologically addicted to these foods for two reasons. One, we never allow ourselves to eat them because we're always on a diet. So when we tell ourselves we can't have something, we want that even more, which is like a child. If you put them in a toy room and say you can play with any toy apart from this toy, of course they even more want to play with that toy because you've told them they can't. That happens with ourselves. When we tell ourselves, when we start a diet, we can't have this, this and this, or we put rules around it, like you can only have chocolate if it's a weekend or if it's a Saturday, and all these restrictions and rules around foods, that makes us already want the type of food that we're saying we can't have even more. So when we give up food rules, which is scary as shit, I may add, you begin to untangle all the neurosis and the neurons in your brain that are so fixated on this particular food stuff. Because if you're addicted to the pleasure of that food, most of the addiction is the fact that in your brain you're thinking like you shouldn't have it, and then when you do give in and have it, it's like a guilty pleasure, and you feel all shit and guilt and shame afterwards, but it does become like an actual drug. So part of the reason is because you don't allow yourself to have it. So giving up dieting and giving yourself unconditional, and that is a massive underline and emphasize, bold, hyphen, everything, the word unconditional. When you give yourself unconditional permission to eat any food whenever you want to, then the binges really do stop eventually, because it's a process. Like I say with all my clients, this part is scary as shit, and it's a process. That's why you need a coach to help you along your journey, because it can get all messy and you'll freak out. But trust me, reverse psychology works, because I never thought I would ever be able to stop eating a whole bag of peanut M&ms, because I never have ever not eaten a whole bag of peanut M&ms. So when I gave up dieting, I became free, and I never thought I'd be able to give up my junk food every evening or secret eating or whatever. But when I gave myself that unconditional permission to eat whatever I wanted, when I wanted, something really magical happened. It happened very slowly, but I gradually started to think, well, I'm not going on a diet tomorrow anymore, ever, because I ingrained that in myself. I did not want to diet again, and this was part of my recovery, to never diet or restrict. So once my brain trusted me, which sounds silly because I'm just one person, but once I trusted myself to not restrict, that's when I could have half the bag instead of the whole bag, or one size family bar of chocolate instead of 2, 3 or 4. And then gradually, you don't even choose to have it, because you can have it later, you can have it in a minute, you can have it in an hour, you can have it tomorrow, and then you start to work on how you feel when you eat certain foods. And like I say, it's a process, and we work on that through our coaching. But to start with the hedonic eating and the reverse psychology, this shit works. So an exercise to help you with, if you think you are a hedonic eater, is think of a food you're addicted to, but the type of food that you literally cannot keep in the house because you're just going to eat it all. And then now this is all fucked up, sorry for my language, but this really works, and please do this. This is why you probably need support through this, because it's crazy. Go to the shop. This is the first rule of learning to break up with dieting. Go to the shop and then add even more of that food in such a large amount that even if you was on a mad binge, that you wouldn't physically ever be able to eat it all. So add shitloads of your favourite food, your trigger food, to your cupboard, and then give yourself unconditional permission to eat this food whenever you want. And you need to not restrict mentally as well. This is really important. If you're eating the chocolate, I'm going to use chocolate because that was always my example. If you're eating the chocolate but the whole time you're thinking, I shouldn't be eating this is really bad, like, and mentally restricting, it's almost as bad as physically restricting, because you're still mentally restricting and your brain is so powerful, and you're not giving yourself unconditional permission because you're beating yourself up at the same time. So when you practice my eating guidelines, which is to eat when you're hungry and stop when you full, and that's it, and again, A-type personalities, which is the type of people I coach and like myself, it's so easy to turn intuitive eating into the hunger and fullness diet. Again, this is why you need support. Don't do that. Affirm to yourself that it's not a diet, it's just a lifestyle. And the more you practice eating when you're hungry and stopping when you full, and trusting this process, trusting that your body knows, because to begin with, you are going to want to eat, if chocolate is your trigger food, chocolate every meal for I think I ate chocolate every meal for 4 days. I literally had chocolate for 4 days and that was it. And although it felt amazing, it soon wears off because you're giving yourself unconditional permission. Remember, you're not on a binge I've got to eat it for a week so I can never eat it again. It really works. Something happens in your brain, and then I started not to want chocolate for my dinner. I started to want sweet potato and chicken and stuff like that. So you will find that this will help to unwind all these obsessive food patterns that you have with this food, what you just eat for pleasure. So that's definitely the right place to start, and to start regaining your self-control around food. Okay, so I understand that you may be thinking, I can't let myself loose around food because I'll literally eat, say if crisps is your thing, I'll literally eat crisps from the day I wake up, from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed. Like I said, you might do that for 4 days, 5 days, a week. You might go on and off doing that, but trust me, you need to trust the process and understand that reverse psychology works. And this will help with eating for pleasure. And I got to the point where I felt in control around chocolate. It didn't own me. I could make choices on whether I genuinely wanted it or not. Then I got to a place where I kind of wanted to eat the chocolate because I physically enjoyed the taste of it and it brought me pleasure, but at the same time I wanted to build healthier habits and feel better in my body. And then that's what we work on towards the end of our, sort of the mid to the end of our coaching sessions that we have together, depending on how long we work together for, because the end goal, everyone wants to be happy and healthy, right? And you're not going to be happy if you're dieting, you're not going to be happy if you're binging, and you're not going to be happy if you're just feeling shit or your health is bad because you're choosing to eat less nutritious foods. And everyone is different, and I advocate no restrictions ever. So there is a way you can build healthy habits into your life without it ever being a diet or ever restricting, and it's not bullshit, and it really, really works. So if you want more information about that, get in touch and ask me. I do have on my website a free 5-day break free from binge eating course. So it gets you started on the path to freedom and starts to change your mindset around food and how you think about food. That will really be helpful to you if you struggle. So go check that out. If you have any comments, comment below, email me, message me, and let me just reaffirm to you that this is a journey. And you've got to trust the process, and it does work. And you've got to ask yourself, when you want to desperately diet again to try and gain some control, or so you're going to like your body better, that's a sign to say you need to desperately work on your body image and your body confidence and how you feel about yourself, which is again is something I do in my coaching, before you can just start another diet, because diets don't work. That's why you're here. So yes, reach out to me if you need help. I love you. You can have, be and do anything you want. You just got to go out and get it, and I'll speak to you next time.